and Josh back again. We've got another wonderful session today. This one's going to be really, really interesting considering all that we've learnt so far and all the great work that you guys have been doing. So we really appreciate that you've been putting the time into this and working through your workbook and answering the questions and really assessing and reflecting on your own life and your goals and your challenges and so forth. But you remember last time we were talking about those 4 stages of learning. And I want to focus just for a couple of seconds on the 2 middle stages again, because what we're going to talk about today is a real key to this, where we move from this point of conscious incompetence, where like, I don't quite know it yet. I realize I don't know everything, do I? Moving from that point to the next stage, which is becoming a conscious competent, where, you know what, I actually can do this. If I concentrate and work on this, I know I can actually do it. And often there's this really big barrier that stands between that jumping from the wanting to do it to where we can do it.
Yeah.
And that's where most people kind of fail and kind of fall into these regular kind of default behaviors and so forth. And so, Josh, we've got something really interesting. I'd like you to just share that with everyone now.
Yeah, we do. We want to look at the brain and the brain's involvement in this process, because if we really don't understand what's going on within our brains, well, we're not going to be able to have any success when it comes to, we've had that aha moment and we've moved from unconscious incompetence where we didn't yet know that we didn't yet know. Now we know that we don't yet know. But you know what? That's not good enough. I don't want to just know I can't do this and keep failing, keep stuffing up, whether it be in my marriage or with my children or with a colleague or a boss at work, whatever the circumstance may be.
Yeah, breaking some bad habits.
Yeah,
that we
right.
have, and we all have them. And I'm sure you know that, don't you? Think, why do I keep falling into that same old trap?
Yeah. It's not good enough that I know I can't do it. I actually want to start to be able to do it. The next time I have a complication, I want to nail it. I really want to do well. So that's when we're moving into conscious competence, and the brain takes a major place or has a major part to play when we're moving from conscious incompetence to conscious competence. So that's what we're going to talk to you about right now. So the first part of what I want to show you or explain to you right now is the 2 key parts to the brain when it comes to our behavior. And so the first part is our neocortex. It's the higher thinking, the higher part of our brain that has to do with the decision making. And it really is the part of the brain that's engaged in this program right now as you're learning and hearing. It's a fairly passive part of the brain, but it's latching onto concepts and it's going, yes, I want to do that differently. Have you ever been in a conflict with your wife, Lauren, the beautiful Lisa, who we've seen in one of these videos already, and she says something to you, I really don't like when you do X. It might be that you put dishes on the bench, not in the dishwasher. I'd really prefer it if maybe those dishes made their way to the dishwasher. And you really heard her and you heard her point, and your neocortex went, you know what? Yeah, the next time I use a plate, I'm going to do that thing. But then it's dinner time. It's 5 hours later after the conflict. And here you are again, just doing what you always do, putting the plate on the bench.
Yeah, exactly. And the kids do that all the time too, don't they? That's right. There's something rational about our neocortex, but then there's something irrational that happens after that.
Well, and that's the part of our brain called the limbic system, and in particular our amygdala. So you might have heard of an amygdala hijack, where we have a fight or flight response, and they've added freeze now, fight, flight, or freeze. Yeah. So this is the part of our brain that's quite reactive. It's actually a prehistoric part of our brain, Lauren. It's designed to flood our body with adrenaline so that we can literally get out of the way of a herd of buffalo, moving towards us when we're in very real, dangerous situations. And it's really to do with giving your body what it needs for those really immediate, dangerous circumstances. It's not really designed to kind of rear its ugly head in just a difficult conversation with a loved one. And yet...
It's not meant to do that, is it? But
No.
so often it does. I mean, you think of the
Absolutely.
times that happens, and that's exactly what happens. You know, a situation arises, and all of a sudden the flight, like, in other words, you get angry and you start reacting. You
Right.
become a bit volatile to this situation, and then before you know it, you're running down this spiral again. Here we go
Absolutely.
again. Or it's the flight, which is like, all right, they dash off to their room and or people sort of stonewall you. You know, it's sort
Yeah.
of part of that whole freeze and
Absolutely.
flight thing where people stop talking to you, and none of those behaviours are healthy.
No.
But yet there is a very real physiological explanation for what is going on, isn't it, with this whole limbic lag
Yeah, there is, absolutely.
process.
So the limbic system tends to lag behind our neocortex. What you just mentioned, Lauren, has a tendency to always wanting to be catching up with the neocortex. And what the neocortex is trying to get us to do, of course, the neocortex, isn't actually in control of our behavior. It's in control of our higher thinking. And it's the limbic system where our amygdala lays, and that's the part of the brain that is to do with our behavior. So in your workbooks, in the 9th lesson, in the 2nd module, you'll find an area called limbic lag, and there's a paragraph at the top of this page which I guess goes into an explanation in detail for limbic lag. So I'm going to put that up on the screen now, and if you'd like to go through your workbooks and fill in the blanks, that would be great. And so it says, if it's positive, the limbic system wants to repeat the experience. If it's negative, the limbic system tries to avoid the experience. That's, I guess, the flight part of the amygdala, fight, flight, or freeze. So the thing is that the logical side doesn't always agree with the emotional side, and this is called limbic lag, meaning the limbic system is lagging behind what logic or a new learning, in brackets the neocortex, would otherwise tell it. Even though you might discover false beliefs or understandings in this program, you might uncover lies you've been telling yourself, you might learn new truths. There will be a time lag between what your limbic system will default to and what your higher mind, your neocortex, will learn here. So Lauren, having learned that, having gone through a definition of what limbic lag is, if we want to take something our neocortex is latching on to and make it permanently part of our behavior, therefore something our limbic system wants to repeat, what do you think the key is?
Repetition.
Absolutely.
Practice.
Absolutely. The key, therefore, is practice and repetition.
You've got to keep doing it. You know, you remember earlier on we talked about, in fact, Josh, what's the quote again?
I don't yet know that I don't yet know.
That's right, but the key word there is the yet.
Yes, absolutely.
And we talk about it, particularly when we're trying to, you don't beat up on yourself about this. It's like, like I can do it, I just can't do it yet, you know, or so that's what this is all about, is practice. I remember when I was learning to play the guitar, and I'm sitting there on the end of my bed and I'm practicing scales, dunk, 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 sort of thing. And so that practice helps to embed that, firstly, in that logical component, that rational part of my brain, the cortex that we're talking about, but then it becomes a part of that subconscious part of our mind as well, where it just becomes that automatic. And repetition or practice is what is the key to that happening. And not only practice, sometimes you have to sort of take that big deep breath, hit that pause button sort of thing in your own kind of thinking for a moment, so that you have time to actually process that and embed that in a very clear way. So the practical part of that, say when I'm practicing the guitar, is just slow it down to like half speed, so that you've just got a little bit more time in between to kind of really process this, so that the hijack doesn't happen. Because you're doing it nice and slow and giving yourself, okay, step one, yep, step two. And isn't it interesting, Josh, when we ask people like, all right, so who suffers stress or feels stress in their life? It's like, well, everyone puts their hand up. Yeah, me, I do. You know, well, you know, part of the reason for that is because we're just not quite hitting that pause button, you know, and allowing that space and that time for us to, because does your brain work better when it's working fast or slow?
Oh, slow, without a doubt.
Yeah, that's it. But some people go, oh, no, you get more done when it's, no, you think when your brain speeds up, what's happening? You're getting stressed, or maybe I should say, when you're getting stressed, what is your brain doing? Well, it's speeding up. So let's wind that back a bit. Let's wind that back so that those two parts of the brain can start interacting a little bit more, what we could say, synergistically with each other. Because it's great to have the emotion and it's great to have the rationale, but you can't have one hijacking the other.
No. Yeah, we need those moments of suspended judgment, those pauses in life, so that we can move out of our limbic system and attach to what our neocortex might have learnt in the past. And then once we can see what our neocortex is trying to tell us and trying to inform our behavior, once we can see clearly, that's when we start to behave, really pulling ourselves out of those amygdala hijacks. So understanding limbic lag is key. Now, in terms of a really great metaphor for how this can apply to change, how this can apply to making a change in our behavior that maybe we haven't found much success in the past, I've got a video I'd really like you to watch, and it's embedded as a link in the PDF of your workbook. So if you're able to open up that file you downloaded, the workbook file that you downloaded, on this page you'll see that there's a link there that you can click called Backwards Bike. And a great organisation over in the States, Lauren, made this video called Smarter Every Day. It's absolutely fantastic. And I don't want to spoil it too much, but if you could go and watch this video now, it's only about 6 or 7 minutes, and it is really going to help you truly understand how your limbic system works. Here's a guy that wanted to accomplish something and knew what he had to do in order to do it, but just couldn't do it. But 5 minutes every day for a couple of months, and finally he started to see some change. It's really interesting. And then he tries the same thing out with his young son, and his young son gets it very quickly, which demonstrates
Isn't that interesting?
Just how plastic and just how pliable our brains are at a younger age.
Definitely, that is definitely the case. Look, it's very comical, but it's also just a really, it's quite inspirational in the way this video too, so check it out.